Well, hey folks, welcome back to the channel. I am Brian. We are outside today because it's a beautiful day, a little chilly, but better than being in the garage. So this is going to be kind of a review, kind of a testimonial, and let you folks know why I picked this Bluetti AC180 out of all of the power stations that I have, and why I picked this, and what is missing on this thing that would make this absolutely the most perfect power station in the world for me. But we'll get into that. So I'm not going to do a whole bunch of boring stuff, but the main important specs that you folks need to know about this Bluetti AC180 is A, it's got 1152 watt hours of lithium iron phosphate battery. On a typical 1 or 2 night camping trip, that is going to be more than sufficient unless you're running really high power devices. But for me, using a little 12 volt blanket, a few lights, charging my phone, my iPad, my drone batteries, I have never come close to anywhere maxing out that 1152 watt hours. But again, it's dependent on what you're going to use this for. For me, again, this is why this is perfect for me. I typically have quite a bit of fuel left in the tank when I'm done and headed home, and I don't really ever worry about running out of power, okay? And the main important thing with this 180 is that it's got an 1800 watt inverter. So that means that I can power my kettle, which is going to make my coffee, because when it's cold outside, my Jetboil doesn't really work. That butane mixed fuel that Jetboils use don't like to be cold, and I don't want to sleep with a can of butane to keep it warm overnight. So in the morning when it's cold outside, I use a power station to heat up water with my electric kettle. That electric kettle uses 1500 watts, and I need a pretty big power station. And typically, when you have a power station with an inverter that can power 1500 watts, it is a much larger power station, much heavier, much bulkier to lug around. This one is not bad at all. And that 1800 watt inverter, I really don't have any devices that I take with me camping that this will not power. So between those two, the 1152 watt hours and the 1800 watt inverter, this thing is absolutely perfect for my case. And the other good thing about this particular model is that you don't have to lug around a charging brick. All you have is one AC cord that plugs into the side, and it's got 3 charging modes. It does have a turbo fast charge mode at 1400 watts. It's got a middle charging speed and then what they call a silent charging speed. I've never had the need to use the turbo at 1400 watts because it is hard on the batteries on any power station, not just this Bluetti. So if you can get by with not using it, it's gonna just prolong the batteries in your power station. However, sometimes it is good to be able to put in a whole lot of watts in a power station really quick, and this one, again, can take up to 1400 watts. And this is pretty perfect for my little tent camping setup that I am building now, because for the solar input. So you do have, it does come with the MC4 cable to the 7909 barrel input for input of solar. This will accept up to 500 watts of solar, or 10 amps, up to 60 volts. So I'm never gonna carry more than that with me when I camp. This isn't going to be a whole home backup system. This is literally just for me camping, and I typically carry a 200 watt solar panel with me. So, but the specs for the solar on this particular unit really fits perfectly, I think, for again, just a 1, 2, 3 night camping trip with minimum solar panels. Not a huge array, but 500 watts worth of solar panels is probably more than most of us tend to carry around on a 1 or 2 night trip. So I think that the solar input on this thing is perfect. Okay, and it's got a flat top, so when I'm going to pack my stuff in my truck, or I was keeping this in the toolbox, but when I put it on the floorboard of my truck behind my seat, I can still put stuff on top of this power station because it's flat. Thank you, Bluetti, for making a flat power station. It's got a wireless charging pad up top, so I don't have to keep a lightning cable to charge up my phone at night. I can just turn on the DC input and put my phone on top, and it wirelessly charges my phone. So that eliminates another cable that I have to bring with me. And you've got your 4 AC outputs here. So I've never needed more than 4 outlets on a power station, and 4 is plenty. I could probably get by with 2, but again, 1800 watts worth of AC output is, in my opinion, more than adequate for anything that I'm gonna ever need to be doing out on a weekend camping trip. And then you got 3 amp USB-A kind of dinosaur ports, but I have found that these USB-As are really, really beneficial because I have a few batteries that will not accept USB Type-C charging. It's just too much. So I actually still have to carry around with me USB-A charging cables to charge up some of my smaller batteries because the amperage is low enough that it actually charges those batteries. Some of these really powerful 100 watt USB Type-C will not, my batteries won't even recognize it because it's putting out too much juice to try to charge those batteries, and I can't charge them. So a lot of people kind of make fun of the USB-As, but I actually do still use them, and I need them. It does have one USB Type-C 100 watt output port, so I do have a couple of things that can accept up to 100 watts of Type-C charging, so it's good to have one. And then you've got just one 12-volt cigarette style output. This is rated at 10 amps. And this kind of brings me around to what I wish Bluetti would do and why this is not quite the most perfect power station, but it's really, really close. I need a high amp DC output port on this power station. This power station alone will not power my diesel heater. I've tried it twice and I showed it in a video on my main channel where my diesel heater at max startup will pull around 130 watts, and anything over 10 amps on this Bluetti and it trips itself down. It will not run it. It shuts the battery down and it shuts my diesel heater down. I have a few other power stations that have like an XT60 output or an Anderson output that are DC rated at up to almost 30 amps. And I think Bluetti even has a couple of bigger power stations that have that. But if this particular unit had like even a 15 amp or a 20 amp DC output, this would literally be an absolute perfect power station for my case. So I wish that had it. And with my diesel heater that I'm going to be using in my tent camper, I actually have to bring a standard or a separate 12-volt battery to hook up to my diesel heater for it to work. I wouldn't have to bring a separate battery if this model actually had a little bit higher output on the DC side of things. That's what it's missing, and I would love for this to have a couple of barrel output ports. A lot of people, again, don't like the little barrel outputs. I use them all the time, and this doesn't have it. So essentially, this only has one DC output, kind of, with this 12-volt cigarette-style charging socket. So that's the only thing that I'm missing with this power station. It needs more DC output, and then, again, it would be perfect. But for the size versus the power output of this unit, it's the most perfect one that I have in all of my plethora of power stations. It's the smallest with the most power, if that makes sense. And that's why I actually use this one. So it's a good power station. It's got an app. I can monitor this power station from inside my tent so I can see my state of charge on the battery. I can kind of monitor my appliances that I'm currently using, whether it's a 12-volt blanket plugged into the cigarette-style charging socket, or if I'm charging up my iPad, charging up my my drone batteries. I don't necessarily have to get out of my tent and go look to see what the battery is at. I can monitor it from my app. And the app's really useful, guys. That's where you go in and change the charging speed. And in the app, you can also turn on what they call power lifting, which enables this inverter to power up to a 2700 watt resistive load appliance. It's just gonna lower that voltage. So I don't use that mode. I think it's kind of useless because if you plug in, say, like a heat gun, it's just gonna lower the voltage on that heat gun to 90 volts or something crazy like that. It'll keep it running, yes, but it's not gonna be usable in my opinion, but you can turn that feature on in the app. I don't use it, but everything else about this power station is absolutely perfect for me. Just Bluetti put in another DC output on this thing and it would be a no-brainer for me to use. You folks probably want to see a capacity test, so I'll go get this thing topped off and I'll show you how many watt hours we're able to pull out of the 1152 watt hours, and then I'll show you that this will run my 1500 watt electric water kettle, which to me is the most important. In the morning, I gotta have my coffee. All right, so there's my quick and easy examples of why I use this, because, you know, I get around 80 to 85% efficient off the battery, and it runs my 1500 watt electric kettle. That's really all that I need, and of course with all the extra USB ports and whatnot. But to sum it all up, the size of this unit compared to the output that it gives me is the best power station that I have in my lineup of power stations, which is why I typically take this one with me, because it doesn't take up a huge amount of space, but it still gives me up to 1800 watts. And, you know, Bluetti is a good brand. I'm not an affiliate of Bluetti. I don't get any money off the sales of these things. Unless you buy them from Amazon, then it's an Amazon commission, but that doesn't really matter. I just checked this morning. It's December the 5th, I believe. This is on Amazon for about 300 bucks cheaper than standard price at $650. So that is a darn good deal for this power station. And Bluetti is going to be dropping sales during the Christmas holidays. Okay, so I think the sales start on December 11th through the 16th, where you can probably get even more of a discount off of this thing if you check out their website. And I'll leave their main website down below. It's not going to be an affiliate website. It'll be just Bluetti's website. So if you want to check during that week, this thing probably will be on sale even more than that, but I don't know. I can't guarantee it, but it might be a good place to start. But that's it, guys. This is my the AC180 And hopefully that kind of helped. I do get a lot of questions on what power stations I use and what can they power and all those type of different questions. And in the past, I was using a Goal Zero. However, I retired that to my shop. It's sitting back there. And this is going to be the new go-to for right now. Unless Bluetti comes out with one in the same size factor with a 15 or 20 amp DC output. That would be icing on the cake, and I would happily switch over to use that one. But as of right now, this one gets the job done for what it can do. And again, the size, the power, everything is just perfect. Just wish it would have a little bit more DC output power. But other than that, gang, that's my power station, the Bluetti AC180. So if you have any questions on this power station, or if you have any questions on how to power some of your devices you want to run at camp, or whatever, if you want to talk, leave me a comment and I will get back to you. So folks, until next time, take care and we will see you soon.